whether they're allowed in the U.S. or not, I would take every single opportunity I have, take advantage of that to invest and share love with them.
We are super excited to introduce you to our 300 Sons for Cité Soleil campaign. As you can see, we have these blank canvases here, and the beautiful thing that's gonna happen is we're gonna take these suns and we are actually literally gonna build a piece of art that is a sunrise that represents all of you coming together for the kiddos that we adore in Cité Soleil. So it's $25 a month commitment, and every single one of them comes together and makes a huge impact. We cannot wait to see who joins the Upstream family.
I keep getting hit with a lot of different questions. You know, the how, why, where, when, you know, what made them think they could do this? And then another one that I would love to hit is, what is the hope for Haiti, the actual country? But let's start off with this. We have a people group that is familiar to suffering. Any person that suffers is always looking for relief. Relief comes to Haitians sometimes in being able to go to a different country, whether it be the Dominican or elsewhere, to either find work or refuge, whatever it may be. And they did this for years in Chile and Brazil. You and I got to spend a few days speaking with these people that made this pilgrimage. Some of them through 11 countries, some of them for 4 or 5 months. Some of them, it cost them upwards of tens of thousands of dollars, their entire life savings, to make that journey, to be received by a people group that just wonders, why are they here? And we did a good job of sharing, like, just the struggle, the reality of the country of Haiti. But let's even go maybe further than that a little bit and say, why do you feel those people decided to uproot Chile and Brazil to make the pilgrimage to the U.S. borders? What do you think inspired them? Because that seems to be everybody's question right now is, well, who tipped them off? How did they know? Why would they leave to do this? What would be? I have my own opinions. Obviously, we have the opinions of some people we spoke to, and you would have your opinions of some of the people you spoke to. Why would you think they'd do that?
Let's go to the root, Joe. You and I have kids. I think one of the questions we ask our kids is, what would you like to be when you grow up? And that is no different for a Haitian family. No matter where they were born in Haiti, no matter what their social status is, no matter what their class is, everybody has a vision. Everyone has a dream. And actually, it's even more interesting in Haiti. I'm going to take my example.
Yeah.
I graduated high school, went to college, and when I decided to start doing, handyman work, my mom and dad were not thrilled, because to them, I would go to work, because when I was, working with the organization, I would come home dirty, and they would be like, "Why are you so dirty?" Why did you study linguistics for? For them, they would take pride in Armando coming home well suited, looking clean. That is the dream of every single parent. Yeah. Even though, after a while, they were really proud. Like, my dad would be showing, his friends my house. Look, my son built that. You did all that work. But at first, he would be, for him, their dream was to see their Armando clean, well educated, having a nice vehicle. That's every parent's dream. That everybody who grows up, they have a dream. Yes. They have a dream. So there goes those people. Some of them are mechanics. They do their best. Some of them went to college. Some of them are nurses. Some of them are. But they're living in a country where there's no hope. There is no hope for them. They do not see a future. They don't.
And I know you know this, but I'll just make the clear. No hope in the physical side.
In the physical side.
This life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
The dream of, like, maybe someday I'll make my way up to a nice house and have enough money to provide all the needs for my family. That type of
exactly. Not hope in Jesus Christ. I mean, Haitians are it's a very church, people. I mean, people go to. I mean,
I know what you mean. Keep on.
So, anyways,
they have no hope.
There's no hope in seeing that dream come true. So, back in the days, I mean, the year that I can remember when people were just living in mass was 2016. There was some kind of, talk between the Chilean government and the Haitian government. I think the president went there to ask, the Chilean government to receive people. So Chile was open. Brazil was open. So all people needed, as opposed to coming to the United States or Canada, nobody needed a visa.
Yeah.
So all you needed was the money to buy the tickets, some pocket money, and you were welcome to this country. So I'm not going to say everybody made an educated decision to go,
Sure.
but they thought anywhere there's some kind of functioning government, some kind of infrastructure, there is more hope.
Sure.
There is hope to find a job. There's hope to get some kind of job, whatever it is, because $1 is better than $0.
Exactly.
So a lot of those people just set sail, for those countries where they thought they would get some type of jobs, and they did.
Yeah.
A lot of them did. A lot of them were able to find a job and send money back to their families, since it's a very family oriented. Families watch out, for each other.
Mm-hmm.
I was sponsored by one of my uncles, and which I will always forever be thankful for. And that's the kind of community we have. Those people left Chile. I mean, a lot of them sold everything they had, Some had a car that they sold so they could find the money. Some had a small house, a small business. And some family members paid for them in hope that, they would help them back. So you had that, and families went and paid, were able to work and brought the rest of their families in. So that the kind of migration that we had, and people were living every single day. Airplanes full of people every single day, going into Panama, to Chile, and because, again, they thought there would be a better opportunity.
Yeah.
And if you ask any of those people, that's what they would say. We left because we thought we would find hope. We would be able to, work and take care of our families.
So for those that had been in Chile and Brazil, I had heard and have heard over the years, I think we've even helped some people from our communities get to Chile and Brazil. What do you think made them finally say, okay, let's pack up everything from here and head to another border? Obviously, some of it is just that continuation of the promised land, or to be able to fulfill their dreams. I'm sure you heard some of the same things I did, but the economy in Chile started getting worse. I mean, COVID affected the world.
It did, big
so
time.
you have another country, I'm guessing Chile and Brazil, some parts are developed, some parts are still third world. And for the working class, I'm guessing they started to suffer a little bit again.
Mm-hmm.
But even so, knowing to that level of suffering, they're in connection with their people back in Haiti. They know things are only getting worse in Haiti. What did you hear, and what did you seem to draw a conclusion as to why they decided to leave everything there and make their way to the U.S.?
COVID is a big part of it.
Yeah.
What I've gathered from the people that I've spoken with, a lot of them, when they went to Chile, only the husbands were working. So when COVID hit, the Chilean would prioritize their people group over, foreigners.
Yeah.
So a lot of those people were laid off. So being laid off in a foreign country, they couldn't just sleep under a bridge.
Right.
So a lot of them ended up being, jobless. There's still that community component, where people would help each other. But again, if they left Haiti to go to Chile, and then Chile doesn't work, of course they would continue to chase their dream, continue to find a place where the
people
grass
kept
is greener.
asking me if they knew that, Joe, if they knew things were getting bad in Chile and Brazil, This is the American. Why didn't they just return to Haiti?
Well, because that Haiti they left.
I know. Well, that's what I mean.
5 or 10 years ago became 100 times worse.
Right. So yesterday I was having a conversation. Wonderful man, retired from Border Patrol, and he was an empathizer. He could understand. He's dealt with the people enough to know the eyes of suffering, the hardship that they come from. But to the average listener, because they don't know all the information, they would think, well, if you're being persecuted or having a hard time now as a foreigner in a country that had once received you, wouldn't you then just return back to your home country? The reason why these people marched to asylum is the reports they were receiving, just as people just heard from yours and mine's experience in Haiti. Death is what awaited them in Haiti. If not death by gangs or death by broken politics, death by inflation. Death by inflation. As a middle-class person in America, when inflation happens here, costs of goods go up, gas goes up, it affects my bottom line and it changes the level of lifestyle I get to have, but it doesn't make me starve to death. I lived from a day when the good was 35 goods to the dollar. You probably lived as a child when it was way back to
5 goods to a dollar. Yeah, back when I was born in 86.
I remember freaking out when it went to 46 and then to 50. And somebody said, could you imagine if it ever went up to 100 goods to a dollar?
We're talking.
We went far over 100 goods to a dollar. So what people may not understand is the average Haitian is being paid in goods. And like you said earlier, their good hasn't changed, yet everything on the street has changed. 25 goods for a Coke forever. As long as I can remember, it's 25 goods for a Coke. Then all of a sudden it went 35 goods. And then some places were even getting 50 goods. Patties on the street doubled. A Haitian plate, a meal, a good plate of rice, sauce, vegetables, and the meat. I remember paying 150, maybe 200 goods if it was a really good plate. Now you can't find them for 350, 400 goods. So all I say is returning, if you are now being kind of, I won't use the word persecuted, but beaten, taken advantage of, kicked aside because you're a foreigner in a country, returning back home really was never an option.
Let me tell, for our listeners, let me put this in context for them, because again, I have experienced that firsthand.
Yes.
I am Haitian.
Yes.
Grew up in Haiti. I remember, going to school when I was in 3rd grade. My dad, my uncle would give me 10 goods. 10 goods. So that was close to when you needed 5 goods to a dollar. With that 10 goods, I would eat, buy, spaghetti, boiled eggs and a drink, and would still have money saved.
Change.
So he was really generous. So I would have change in my pocket to buy a computer even.
Wow.
Like I love to buy toys, growing up, I love, getting toys to transform into other things. So I had that, mentality. So that was when I was in 3rd grade. By the time I was in 13th grade, Philo, he was giving me 1,000 goods to go to school.
From 10 goods to
10 goods to
goods.
1,000 goods. And I could barely save anything out of that 1,000.
Wow.
So that and understand the minimum wage is 200 goods for factory workers.
Yeah.
200 goods.
Yeah.
And with inflation, that doesn't change. They don't change it.
No.
So some people would go to work, and with the money that they get daily, they would able maybe to afford taps, to pay for public transportation.
Yeah. So for those of you guys that don't understand what a tap is, imagine a bus where it runs from depot to depot. These are just private trucks, vehicles converted to haul anywhere from 10 to 50 people, depending on who's willing to get in the tap.
There's always room for one more.
But the average person, unless they're fortunate enough to work or go to school right in their own zone or neighborhood, sometimes has to take 3 or 4 taps to get to a place, and each tap has its own cost. So it's not uncommon to find somebody that may work for $2 a day and it costs them $1.50
just for transportation,
just to get there and back. So they're really only taking home 50 cents that day.
Yeah. So again, why didn't those people return to Haiti? Because Chile was not what they thought it was going to be. because Haiti became 100 times worse than when they left it. So now, why risking everything they had? Why spending their life savings to cross 11 countries where they got ripped off, to go through the Darien Forest, known as the deadliest journey one can take? Why? Where did that news come from? I have no idea.
Yeah.
That is a mystery.
It is still today a part of mystery.
I do not understand it, but for some reason, somehow, I don't know if it's misunderstanding of what the Biden administration had said, or even what, Biden's opposition, people have said, because, the media has a way of saying and twisting things, by saying, like, for instance, if Joe says, something like that, okay, borders open.
Well, let's talk about that. So anybody that's watching the news today, we are in a current situation where we have administrations that aren't appreciative of each other or each other's values or rules. So since the day Biden was elected president, you have the Republican Party, and I don't want to pick parties, but you have the opposition, let's call them, that has put a lot of burden and attention on what seems to be very unprotected borders. If you were to watch the news day in and day out, you would hear a lot about the border. You'd hear a lot about how open the border is. You would hear a lot about this administration being very welcoming to people. So I don't want to paint a picture, but I know myself well enough that if I'm getting ready to go on foot 11 country journey, pregnant, with a child in tow, not knowing all of the languages, not knowing all of the countries, there has to be a great hope, an immense hope.
Absolutely.
That something is going to be worth this. Because I don't know how many you spoke to, but I know that there were many that were lost along the trail.
Oh, yeah.
Many of them did not make it to that bridge. I heard one gentleman tell me about how they had gotten into an enclosed semi-trailer. And once they had paid to get in that trailer, the door was locked for 36 hours, a day and a half, in 100-degree temperatures, not knowing where they were going or where they were moving. And he said when those doors opened, not only were they panicked, but there were many that didn't make their way out.
Yeah.
We heard of the people being taken advantage of by the police in different countries.
By restaurants, by hotels.
Being extorted by this was a horrific journey. This was not a hop on a plane. And for a few, they were able to do some plane hopping. But for a good majority, this was a painstaking journey that for me, knowing the Haitian people, meeting them that day, began with a great piece of hope that they were going to be received by the American borders with hugs and kisses. That only makes me sad because now we are treating them as if they were evil, foolish, for thinking that we would ever show that kind of compassion on them. And for some, they are just being put on a plane and sent back to Haiti.
Yep, exactly. I mean, it had to be. It had to be that they knew for sure that they were going to be welcomed at the border. I mean, where did that deceptive news start? I don't know who started it, who spread it, so that, all those people would embark in that journey, spending everything they had. I mean, not that they knew they would spend everything, but they were taken advantage of.
Imagine all of a sudden you're in a new country and somebody's saying, I'm not letting you out of this country unless you give me $1,000.
Exactly. And you hear that story where some of them were bused, or they could be, or they could take a bus, and it would cost the local $10, they were charged $800. For two people, for a bus ride.
They knew how desperate
because they knew how desperate
they were stuck in between borders that they couldn't retreat to or advance in, so it just became an extortion.
It's not a new route. either, for migrants,
Yeah,
migrants.
no.
I mean, that's been for years, but for that amount of people to embark in that journey at once, I mean, that's what's mind blowing to me. Up to this day, I have no idea how it started. And first, a lot of those people left Chile beginning of June.
Yeah.
Sleeping, walking, and if you want to know, put it in context. I mean, watch that Darien Forest. There are a lot of documentaries on it on YouTube. But I mean, there's one gentleman that told me that with in his group, there was a mom who had two children, and she came to a point where she was so desperate, so done. She left the little one.
Yeah.
I mean, he was picked up by other people in the group, but all she had left was that survival instinct in her.
Yeah.
Her humanity.
Yeah.
Her sensitivity, her sensible motherhood had left her because, again, she was just looking at the finish line.
Yeah. No,
thinking, if anything is left, she's gonna make it. So I mean, I will never understand that journey. I don't think anybody will ever understand it unless you experience it. But those people, they had hope. I mean, I was listening to a 10-year-old girl who said, now it's her turn to take care of her mom because her mom did that for her to give her a future. So they knew for sure that they were gonna return.
That was their hope.
That was their hope.
Yeah.
That was their hope, anyways.
I don't like the image of people thinking that they were coming to like overpower the gate or that they came like, wielding machetes and trying to cross that way. They really, truly, until even the moment that you and I were putting some of them on the buses, are still hopeful.
Yeah.
That asylum is going to be here for them, for the ones that were fortunate enough to be put into America versus straight deported.
Yeah, and that's again, Joe. I want to reiterate that I condemn what happened at the border.
Yes.
If I were a country leader, I'd be really concerned about it. I would probably deal with it harshly, because I wanted, I would want to protect my borders. So this is what
you're saying there, though, is as far as the law is concerned and being into law enforcement, you're just saying no matter what it was, even the hope that they had, doesn't mean that you just let them in freely. There's a process that they have to go through. And you're saying if the roles were reversed, obviously you would protect and defend the borders, just as every natural person should.
Exactly. But what we want people to understand, and I think we're in a position where we need to empathize with both groups. Both the people who do not understand, and this is the reason why we're here to shed light on the matter. But for Joe and I, just every time we hear something like, I mean, I was on my way from work today, and I happened to be listening to that radio station where every time the guy would refer to to that group, he would say COVID positive illegals. He made sure he added the COVID positive to incite anger, more anger, on the fact that, some of these people were processed. And the fact that I heard that 4,000 people were deported to Haiti.
Yeah.
I read, I mean,
it is so hard to get numbers. I know that with you and I being boots on the ground, I can account for 1,500 or so, at least to the Haitians. I can't account for, because we met people from Ghana and Africa and different parts of South America. I can account for what seems to be around 4,000 or so that were brought into the U.S. The some that were deported back, the many that are still in detention facilities. That seems to be the overwhelming number. And then also the group that retreated back into Mexico.
And my point is that for those people who would think, oh, this is an insurrection, this is a group of violent people who come to take over. No, that was a group of vulnerable people who just went through, a horrific journey, who made it and slept like animals under a bridge. Yeah. And some of them just found themselves back in Haiti. Yeah. And if I don't know if you watch those videos, a lot of them were just in disbelief. Yeah. They were crying, they were wailing, what they're gonna do, with their kid who was born in Chile or Brazil.
Yeah.
We even heard of some Africans, that made it to Haiti, or a country that's not their country.
Their country.
So all to say that was a group of vulnerable people who were at the mercy of law enforcement. And unfortunately, some of them find themselves in that situation where they can go back to Chile, they can go back to America, and now they have to put up with what's happening in Haiti. So it's heartbreaking. It is, I don't have words to describe it. For those who were granted a temporary permission, to stay here, to see their family members, they still have a long journey ahead.
Well, let's touch base on that a little bit. So, obviously, all we can do is be sympathetic and empathetic to those that were sent back to Haiti for the sole purpose of they're back at square one. They were legal in Chile and Brazil. Whether or not they get back there, I don't know. All of that is to be undecided. But now we do have a large population and a continuing population that is being allowed in America. Basically, what that looks like is whether it be Border Patrol or Department of Homeland Security, whomever, ICE, is giving them a form that allows them to get to a destination, some sort of sponsor, a family member, somebody that can vouch for them, to have an appearance, a date, to get a date for an asylum hearing. It doesn't mean that they are now Americans. Nobody was given permanent passport, citizenship, green cards, or anything like that. But they are being given, which I don't know immigration law well, seems to be the legal process. The right and legal thing to do for a person seeking asylum is to at least give them their day in court. Now, they do have a pretty hard case to present, to prove that they are deserving of asylum, and also very costly when it comes to attorneys, law, stuff like that. So although they are here, there is a good chance that a majority of them will not be able to stay. What are kind of your thoughts and feelings on that?
Well, again, I want to warn people about what they're hearing. I know, I don't want to name the guy, but, hearing things like, oh, the administration just dumped 12,000 immigrants behind your door. And that is inciting anger. Yeah. That is, causing more trouble. That is, not looking at humanity. That is really distorting everything. It doesn't really help, to be spreading that propaganda, So again, those people, a lot of them even have, whatever you call it, that GPS thing.
Yeah, the bracelet, like a tracking bracelet. Quite a few do, quite a few don't.
Yeah,
yes.
Just to say that those people are being, monitored. Yeah. They're being watched. And one of the things that we did, Joe, that I did, I know you did it too, was encouraging those people to do what the law requires, and what I wish that would happen, and I understand why it doesn't happen. I don't want to go into details with that. Those people would be given a chance to either return to South America, if they're not allowed in the U.S. and not just be deported to Haiti. Because a lot of them, if they had a choice, a lot of them were legal.
Yeah.
They had their documents, they had their residency, in Brazil or Chile. So a lot of them would have preferred to return to South America as opposed to Haiti. But unfortunately, they were not given a chance to do that. So I do not know the fate of those people that will appear to court, in 15, now less than 15, about maybe in 10 days.
Yeah.
A lot of them will have to appear wherever they ended up in their, estate. And that's in the hands of the government. Yeah. They will have to present a case that proves that they're deserving of asylum. And that's on ICE, or on the authorities involved, to decide, the fate of those people. So our hope is that, they would be understood. My prayer and hope is that those people would be understood. And I would call on anyone who has an opportunity to talk with them and invest in their lives. Because, again, they went through trauma. They will need healing. There are people with emotions like any of us, God's image bearers. whether they're allowed in the U.S. or not, I would take every single opportunity I have, take advantage of that to invest and share love with them. So if you're listening and if you have that opportunity, if some of them ended up, in Florida, I mean, for some reason, Haitians love to go to Florida and New York, New Jersey. So if you're in that area, that would be an opportunity maybe, to bring a meal and show some love. Sometimes, those are the little things that we can do that have great importance, in the sight of God.
Let me piggyback on that real quick, because that you just, I 100% agree with you, and you just did a beautiful job of you just stated that perfectly, because it really doesn't matter our opinions as to whether they deserve to be deported or deserve asylum. There are laws. There are ways to work through this, and those laws, until they go through scrutinizing changes, they need to be upheld. Otherwise, we'll have chaos. The last thing we want to do is, for the sake of compassion, bend our own rules. That starts a whole new problem of all kinds of countries trying to figure out how to make this same voyage. That we have to just trust that will be handled the way it needs to be. But in the meantime, and that was the part that I love, in the meantime, for those that are image bearers, for those that just love humanity and can have compassion on a fellow human, but even greater so for those that call themselves Christian, this is an opportunity.
Oh, man.
And I'm going to steal it, but you said it first. I'll give you the quote. To really point them to their true final destination. Their pursuit has had a destination in mind, a place where the grass is greener, a place that may seem happier or more joyful or whatever. But the reality is, this life, this too shall pass. The suffering of the countries that we're born into, or the countries of privilege that we're born into, will one day pass away. And our eternity will only be spent in one of two places.
Amen.
And the vulnerability of the people that I was seeing alongside of you in Del Rio were the type of people that are good soil for planting seeds of a real hope. Not just a hope in an ICE document working in their favor, because you and I both know this. You just exchange one problem for the next.
Yep.
The promised land of America for a Haitian can be pretty hard too. There are many, many ways to ruin a life, a family's life, in any country. So whether they're in your own backyard, whether they're here temporarily, or you may be housing them through a refugee status, love on them well, point them to Christ. As Jesus said, for whatever you do to the least of these, you've done unto me. So treat these people as Christ. Let the law take care of the law. And if you really, really feel one way or the other, then you have the same right as the rest of us. Advocate however you can. Don't just take to social media and spread hate or spread confusion. Call the people that can actually make a change. It is tiresome. I spent a few days on the phone myself. It seems to be one hoop through another. But that's the only way that we can truly affect that kind of change. And man, it was an honor to serve with you. We're not done yet. There's still more to come. And I've been asking that question a lot lately as God kind of threw us knees deep in. What is our part to play? We saw it firsthand, your ability to speak right to the heart of Haitians, mine to make a good joke and speak some Creole as a big American scary guy, and that connection. But it's still not all over.
It's not over.
So whether it be Haiti or here, I want to ask you a question I've been being asked a lot. It's a little away from the immigration side of it. But Haiti it's a confusing country. Even those that study it, spend time getting to know it, it can still be just as confusing. But the question that I get asked all the time is, what is Haiti's hope? And like I said, you and I both know the answer spiritually. But I think it all depends on to what extent somebody means hope.
Right.
But what would you say is something practical, real, that could bring change to your country?
Like you said, Joe, it's easy for a Christian to say the hope is Christ.
But there's a long life to live yet.
There's a long life to live
before
yet.
we get.
I mean, we wish Christ would come tomorrow and get it over with.
Yes.
But we all know that to have a country, you need solid leadership. To have a family, you need solid leadership. You need balanced leadership. Families are the foundation of any society.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't mess with that. Shouldn't mess with families. We shouldn't change God's standards for family, because that is really the foundation of the society. So, we need good leadership. That is something that Haiti has struggled with for years, not having a patriotic, caring leadership. We have yet to have that. And I do think the moment we have a leader who will not sell his dignity, for money, who will not to trample what his own for foreign's interests. I think the moment we have that solid leadership, things will change radically. Just like they can change radically with horrible leadership, which is what we witnessed in the last several years. They can change radically as well with positive and good patriotic leadership.
Amen.
And I think that goes along for any existing country in the world. That's why we should. Elections have consequences.
Yeah.
We should make we should really ponder on who we vote for, to be, the leaders of our countries. And I think that's a place Haiti has yet to get. Have that kind of leadership that can stand for the benefit of the people of Haiti, for the benefit of the beautiful island that the God has blessed us with. We have a beautiful place. Take away the people, take away government. It's a beautiful, attractive place that the Lord created. So I think that is my logical answer. Have a solid, good, positive, patriotic leadership, and I think things will change radically when we have that.
I agree with you, 100%. 100%. So many of the issues, aside from earthquakes and hurricanes, that everybody has to deal with, the leadership has been the most destructive. And anybody can handle the devastation that comes with a natural disaster because it's unavoidable. But when it comes at the hands of your own countrymen that are meant to have your best interests at mind, to know that behind closed doors they're taking backhanded deals for self-benefit or for the benefit of a small group of people, while the whole nation has to suffer, it has to come to an end. It has to come to an end. And, also a word to the wise for those that live in countries where they're taking for granted some of those rights and leadership. So, Al, we're going to come back. We're going to have more and more conversations as we go. But man, thank you so much for spending time with me tonight.
Yeah, man, it's been fun.
I think we covered
It was a blessing.
some good bases.